And we're live. Welcome to this week's episode of Choosing Us. Choosing me, choosing you.
There you go. All the things.
Holy cow. Figuring out this studio, I think we finally got it.
Yep.
We've changed the lights. We've changed the light modifiers. We've changed all kinds of things.
It's great.
Slowly getting there, one step at a time. And that's really what everything is about. Just trying to get to somewhere. We know where we're going, but just taking one step at a time, trying to get there.
At least we have an idea of where we want to go. That changes regularly.
Yeah, but how are you supposed to pivot, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have an end in sight? Constantly adapting, constantly shifting, but you're just merely reacting if you don't have a goal and have a plan.
It's true.
And just recognizing that goal and plan is going to change all the time. But having the map, having the path, really allows for you to progress efficiently.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we've learned a lot the past few years as we've set plans and executed them and then pivoted and create a new plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep moving forward.
It's pretty cool. We've got a project launching, fingers crossed, this week. And there is quite a bit of things that we have adapted, molded, curated on this project because of a learning 2 years ago. Our largest financial learning to date has actually caused our current plan a specific path, a specific way. So that learning that we had, some will call it a failure, we call it feedback, has given us ability to move forward now. How many times we've been looking at schools for our 2-year-old. And we were talking with a potential school, and we think we found who we're going with. But we've been talking to this potential school, and we were asking some very key questions, some things that we missed with our 4-year-old that you might say, oh, messed up there. Well, we're correcting it with our 2-year-old. We learned. We were asking about phonics. Do they teach phonics in their school? And they kind of stumbled and said, oh, yeah, we do that too. Because they were just talking about how they do memorization skills on recognizing letters and what the letter says or what it is, but not necessarily how to say it so they can start learning to read. So our 4-year-old is struggling to do the phonics of words correlating. He can point out every letter. He can point out every number up to basically 100. But correlating how it sounds when junctioning to make a word, he struggles with because we didn't focus on phonics, and neither did any school he went to. So we're adapting, we're pivoting, we're learning, and we're placing emphasis on those things that some would call a failure. We call it feedback.
Learnings.
Call them learnings. So if you ever hear us say learnings, that means we screwed up somewhere and we learned from it.
Yeah.
And some other things that we've screwed up along the way, and we learned. There was a time in our marriage, in our life, where I was working a lot. Like a lot. 12, 14. I remember some 20-hour days, leaving at 4 a.m, getting home at midnight. 20-hour days. Michaela at home holding the fort with our baby, our firstborn, when he was an infant / toddler. And I was missing all of the milestones.
And that was really hard on you.
Every one. It sucked. Michaela would send me videos of his first crawl, his first word, his first solid food, his first everything was via video. I experienced my son's first 2 years of life via video, which was not fun.
Yeah. And we've gone through a lot of different seasons, and going into the topic of this episode, We're going to be talking a lot about work-life balance and how that is different for every relationship. And it's a huge topic, and there's a lot of different conversations around it and opinions, but it will be different in every part of your life, in every season of your life. It's not going to look the same.
There's this misnomer that kind of a balance, right? You've got two sides with a pivoting point. We've all done teeter-totter. I do teeter-totters with my son. Very out of balance. It's all swayed me. However, I can stand up and do a little bit of air squats and level us out. So we're even. So we're balanced. A lot more energy is being placed into my side on this teeter-totter when compared to my son, where his legs are flailing and he's just sitting there and he thinks it's hilarious. That's kind of like life, where you put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into one thing, so much energy, and usually the energy is in the form of time. But when you are present with one thing, like when I'm with my family, or when you're with us, or when we're together as a family, or I'm working in the office, we have the ability to put more emphasis, more priority on that time. Now, is it to say that I spend even number of hours with my family that I do with my work? No, not even close. It's like 8 hours out of the 12 during the day I'm working. But it's the 4 hours that matter the most.
And I think a lot of times husbands or whoever it is who is the person who goes out and is working and making the money, there's a harder transition period from work to home life. And a lot of times that person will come home from work and then they're still working. And especially through 2020 and people working at home,
Mm-hmm.
that was hard on a lot of relationships because they were working out of the house, which means they could work whenever they wanted. So maybe not whenever they wanted, but you need to have this separate space that this is work and this is family. Because when you combine those two and you end up working at home, then those lines become blurred and that becomes a lot harder on the rest of the family.
One thing that we did here in this house, we lived here previously, for those that don't know. We went away for a year, now we're back. The first time around, my office is the front family room. It's the front living room. It's right by the front door. And there was no office doors. It was just wide open to the rest of the house. And consequently, my sons want to sit on my lap. They want to type on the computer while I'm typing. They want to see what I'm doing. So I had extra keyboards and mouse for them that weren't connected, that they would type and play, but they'd sit on my lap and I'd have conference calls and kind of have to introduce my kids on the conference call, which was really difficult and dang near impossible to be efficient at all, which caused this bleed over to happen even more because I wasn't getting things done in a timely manner. Therefore, I wasn't getting it done on time, and it would bleed over into when I normally wouldn't be working. This time around, we installed office doors. We modified the doorway, put in double doors, made it all nice and pretty and painted them. And we're figuring it out. We put some locks on the door. Our sons push on them. They're probably going to break those locks. Need to modify the locks a little bit to be a little stronger. However, when I'm able to focus in, I can let her know, hey, I'm going to be done by this time. And then I actually am done by that time. You just stop. And I transition from work to home. Because when I'm in the office space, that is my workspace versus my home space. And creating a very separate place to do work function, and a separate place to do home function, and a separate place to do sleep function, and separate places to do things that allows your brain to wholly become present there.
I think it's really important that, like you said before, your family a lot of times does not get as much time in the day as work because you're at work 8 hours a day, and then you come home, family gets about 4 hours. So the family hasn't seen you all day long, and then you come home, and if you're not entirely present, if you're still on the phone, answering text messages, checking all the things you missed throughout the day while you were at work, that's hard on the family because you've been gone all day long, and then you walk in the door and those boys' faces light up. They are so excited. They want your full attention. And so we've talked a few times about how if you're finishing a work call, if you're finishing a phone call, like finish it in the car, because the moment you walk through that door, those boys are going to run to you. And if you're like on the phone and shh, like be quiet, you need to be quiet, like, or not giving them your full attention, that's hard on them. They don't understand. And so creating those boundaries and figuring out what works in your family is really important, because when you're with your family, be 100% present. Be there. If you need to take phone calls, if you need to answer a few messages, like go out of the room or don't walk in the house yet, finish what you need to finish, and then go inside, put your phone down, and give them your full attention, because they notice that and they see that. And the energy shift there is huge from when you walk in distracted, from when you walk in and give them your full attention.
And when we started doing this, am I perfect? No. I do make a very conscious effort to sit in the car and finish the call. And she's right. The change in energy is huge. How the boys show up when they see me walk through the door. And I do take a bit of time before I walk in so I can transition from work mode to dad mode. And they are very distinct transitions called transitionatory periods. Transition periods, I guess. Transitionatory, oh, that's a word. But transition periods, and making it so I can walk in, be fully present. And another thing we started originally was from 6 to 7 was phones off. We've now expanded that, and I'm working on it. We're not perfect yet, but 6 to 8.
And we put reminders in our phone because it's hard. And sometimes this is a newer thing for us and we're still working on it. But there are phone calls that come up. There are text messages. There are people that need things answered. But setting those boundaries that this is family time and creating that in your life, whatever that may look like, setting that up. And for us, we've made it 6 to 8, which in that time period is we're making dinner, we're eating dinner, we're spending time with the family after dinner, and then we put the boys to bed. And then after we get the boys to bed, then we can answer the messages on our phone, do whatever needs to be done, and then we spend time together, us. But it's been cool, the difference. And as you start to do that more and more, the people that are in your lives are going to know, oh, he's not going to answer you between 6 to 8 because that's his family time. People are going to start catching on to that and being like, oh, yeah, at 6:30, he's not going to answer. And that is important. Like, hold to that, because your family, we talk so much about how, oh, I work for my family, or I'm making money to support my family. Well, what happens is you focus so hard on work to provide. And then a lot of times people end up losing their family because they worked so hard.
Yep. There's an acquaintance that I have. I met him a couple of years ago. We just had one trip together. And this man is really successful, really wealthy. He exited his company and now he just does philanthropy full time, every day, all day. And he and I were having a conversation. We were in Mexico together for about 4 days. And over breakfast, he had made mention that he does not answer the phone at all, by way of work, that is. There is zero work that takes place in his home. None. He does not answer text. He does not answer calls. He is fully present with his family because he spent so many years working. He decided he was done with that. And so if he has to take a call, he goes for a walk, or he sits on the front porch. He does not take a call inside the house. It does not matter. It does not matter the weather. He lives in Texas, so where he's at, it's pretty nice year round for the most part. But he takes calls outside. They do not enter his space, which is pretty cool.
His family is a priority, and that space that is for his family is very sacred. And you have to identify that and you have to create that. It's not just going to happen to where, oh, yeah, my family's a priority when I'm not at work. What specific things are you doing to create that space? It's not just going to happen. You've got to sit down, have the conversations. What is important in your relationship? What's important in your family? And what needs to be worked on to create that sacred space that is your relationship and your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your spouse, and your dynamic as a family. You have to prioritize it and make it important.
And here's the thing. When you say I'm really busy, I have all this stuff, all these responsibilities, consider my friend who had a company. I don't know, he had like 700 or 800 employees, something like that, or more. The company that he exited, he's had several companies, and he travels a lot for work and for speaking, philanthropic work that is these days. But somebody of that caliber, that capacity, worth as much as this life has to offer, he still holds strong and holds the standard of making his family a priority.
But I've heard a lot of excuses from business owners that, oh, the company doesn't run if I'm not working on it, or I have to take these calls. It's part of owning a business that you have to make the sacrifices because you're the one that's in charge of everything. You have your employees contacting you, you have clients, you have all these different people that rely on you because you're the business owner. But one thing I've loved that I heard once was that the business will go on, and that, like, if there's a fire at work, there's nothing you can do about it if you're not there. Like, you can give this time to your family. The world is not going to end in 1 hour. And if you have clients calling you or customers, employees, whoever it is, they can wait. You need to set those boundaries and put your family first. And create, yes, there's going to be times where you have to focus on work, and work is going to come first because you have to do specific things, but you have to set a time frame to where this is when I focus on my business and my employees and my clients, and this is when I focus on my family. And your employees are going to learn that. They're going to know that, oh, he's with his family, he's not going to answer right now.
It's holding the line and helping them understand. I had a client one time, and they were saying how they have to be there. They run restaurants, plural. And I said, do you have anybody that can do 80% of your capacity? He said, no, not right now. I said, okay, we need to get somebody that can do 80% of you. And the only reason they can only do 80% is because you're in the way. You need to get out of the way and let your general managers do their job. They should not be asking you for every little thing. You should be hiring people smarter than you. You should not be the most knowledgeable person in the company. You should be hiring those people. And if you are the most knowledgeable person, chances are you're actually not. But you've held them by such a short leash that they feel they have to come to you. So opening it up and allowing your team to do their job and to do it well and get out of the way. That's why you own a company. You own a company because you want to have more time and freedom with your family. That's why you started. You didn't start it to be bound by golden handcuffs. You created it to increase freedom.
And a quote that I really liked, and a question that was asked was, this gentleman asked another gentleman and said, do you value your work and do you invest in your work? And he was a business owner, and he said, of course I do. Okay, we'll flip it. Do you value your family? Do you invest in your family? And he had to take a step back and realized he didn't invest in his family the same way he was investing in his work. And that will make a huge difference. You wonder why your family struggles sometimes, your communication struggles sometimes, your family is upset, your relationship, everything is just kind of crumbling when you're so focused on work. And I think it's really important to take a step back and to have the conversations and talk about, first of all, what is important? What are your priorities? Is work a priority over family? Every once in a while, work is going to take more than family. It's just going to happen. You're going to go through seasons. But in those seasons, making specific times, whether it is 30 minutes or an hour, and you designate that time and you put it in your calendar. It's not going to happen on its own. You have to make your family a priority. You have to set the plan to make the priority.
And here's the thing, and we'll kind of end on this note so we don't run too long. If there is sickness in your family, it takes priority. If there is continual sickness in your family, you find the problem. You fix it so you're not sick anymore. We've all been through those bouts of just sickness going through the house over and over and over again. You take extreme caution. You take extreme measure. You start finding out what you're eating, where you're going, who you're with. You start looking pretty extreme and with scrutiny on to fix it. So you become back to status quo. Now, think about that in your business. If there is sickness in your business, if it's not healthy, it takes priority, just like in your family with sickness. If your business is always on fire, it is always sick, you should probably take scrutiny, get extreme to bring it back to status quo. So it's not on fire constantly, just like you shouldn't have fire in your family constantly. You should not be living in a state of chaos. Chaos happens, yes. You shouldn't dwell there. You should correct it and get it back on par so things can fall back in prioritization. Yep.
Enough said.
Boom. But we love you guys. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for your comments and for your listens. It is really cool to see our quote unquote little podcast quite literally span the world. And it's been fun to see and fun to have conversations and fun to watch you guys blossom. We blossom and grow because of this podcast too. And it's a blessing for us to share our experiences, sometimes get quite a bit vulnerable, and grow. So, until next week, we like you. We like you. Like this podcast. Download it. Share it for future listenings. You can find me on socials, Mr. Brad Draper.
And Draper choosing us.
We love you guys. Bye.